And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this Tuesday, March 18th, 1:06 in the afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. And kind of a cloudy, dreary afternoon. Not a lot of sunshine out there, but at least we're not dealing with snow or snow on the ground. Trying to put a positive spin on what otherwise is kind of a dreary day out there. No sunshine. There's not much expected for the rest of the day either, Bridgette.
Well, at this point, we'll take what we can get, and we know that further south of us, they are expecting quite a bit more of stormy weather throughout this week, and we may see some by the weekend, is my understanding.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, we need the moisture. That's for sure. Oh, do we need the moisture? And there's a little bit on the way, but again, there's not a whole lot. No big storms. But if you have any travel plans going south into areas just south of Sioux Falls, let's say Sioux City, let's say just Columbus, Nebraska through Sioux City, northwestern Iowa, southern Minnesota. Most of this staying south of the Twin Cities, but if you have any travel plans going in that direction tomorrow, blizzard conditions are expected down to our south. But for us, much quieter weather, but we'll see the wind from that system as we head into tomorrow. But for the rest of today, we're looking at cloudy skies, temperatures in the 30s to near 40. And winds out of the north-northeast about 5 to 10. Tonight, mainly cloudy, mid-20s. Tomorrow, we'll see increasing sunshine. At least we'll see the sun. But we'll see winds increase as well, 20 to 30 and gusty out of the north. And highs tomorrow in the upper 30s. And then as we head into Thursday, that's the pick day of the week. It's also the official first day of spring. With highs on Thursday in the low 50s and a little bit of a breeze, but not much out of the southwest, about 10 to 20. And then we cool down on Friday. Could see a rain or snow shower on Friday. And then a better chance for rain-snow mix as we head into Sunday. Temperatures over the weekend, low 40s on Saturday and upper 30s on Sunday. Not expecting any accumulating snow with that on Sunday, at least not right now. But any precip we get is much, much needed. Still looking at a potential of a bigger storm, possible, at the end of the month. We'll keep an eye on that. And then the stormy part of the LRC cycle will show itself again mid-April through the end of April. So mid through the end of April, probably lasting into that first week in May as well. Hopefully by then it's warm enough. And those systems coming through the middle and end of April, especially towards the end, are the two blizzards that missed us, or for the most part. One to our south here this week and the one last week that just clipped our area. So those will be cycling back towards the end of April, and we'll see what hopefully we get some much more needed precip this next go-around than we did this part of the cycle.
Well, I think overall right now, people are going to ask if we're going to have ice over the weekend as we see what happens on Sunday. That's probably a major question that people have. And second of all, I know you say we're going to get moisture, but realistically, we're not going to get that much moisture out of this.
Not a lot. No, it'd probably be under 0.2 of an inch on Sunday. And I'm not too worried about icing or even if we saw any accumulating snow. It would be early Sunday morning, Saturday night into early Sunday morning. Then when temps warm up, we'd mix that with rain. So not looking at any travel problems with that system on Sunday, but something we'll keep an eye on. It has the potential of being a little stronger system. It's a little clipper system that's moving out of Canada. So we'll see how that behaves. But like I said, whatever it is, we need the moisture. And taking a look at even further down the road, through the month of April. Looks like most of the precip, according to the LRC, is going to fall out in the central and western part of the state, which is good news for them. They need the moisture as well, where we're only going to see about 80 to 85% of average rainfall during the month of April. So, hopefully the LRC is wrong. Would like to see a little more moisture in here, especially as we get a little closer to growing season here.
Well, looking at the U.S. Drought Monitor, I've got it pulled up right now, and you can see that the southern border counties in North Dakota show moderate drought. And again, not a lot of snowfall has happened over the winter months, but that doesn't mean that folks are in a desperate situation. As we move to the western third of North Dakota, running from Canada to South Dakota, you're going to see a little more drought in that area, which would stand to reason. They are typically a more drier, arid area. There is a red pocket up in the elbow of the Missouri River, and that would be an area that saw a lot of the wildfires last year. And they also, really, that whole western third saw wildfires in the October area October timeframe last year. They have certainly been drier. They would love to see some rainfall. For us over here, things are not at a terrible standstill yet. We know that it's dry. Would it be nice to see a nice rainfall for our seed bed before we plant? Sure. But in the grand scheme of things, I think there's a lot of farmers that would really love to get in the field and plant and then get rainfall. Because when you start with muddy conditions, you now start slabbing the ground, you plug your planters, you are smearing the ground, you are sticking seed into wet ground, and if it's still cool out, you have the chance for seed to rot and low germination. So realistically, there's a number of things that could factor into all of this yet. Mother Nature always tends to make it up for us in some way, shape, or form. We plant a crop. It has been a long time since we have had a complete and utter disaster, and many farmers in the area will tell you a little bit drier season tends to have a better yield than a little bit wetter season. So we're going to see what 2025 plays out as, but even according to the U.S. Drought Monitor right now, some of our worst conditions in the United States is the very bottom of South Dakota into the panhandle of Nebraska, winding into Wyoming, and then, of course, the southwest part of the United States, those border counties in West Texas into New Mexico, Arizona, and there's even some that the bottom third of Nevada and a little bit of California. So those areas also typically a lot drier as well. And yes, I can hear the sirens, Dean. I don't know what you and Addison are doing in the studio today, but stop it. We don't
Addison,
need sirens.
put that away. Hide that stuff, would you?
It's not my fault. Who snitched?
Yeah, who snitched? Snitches get stitches. Better be careful.
So it is National Ag Week, so you guys be on your best behavior over there. You just never know when things are going to happen, right? And one of the things that will be happening is we are giving away a quilt, the Farmer's Prayer. The Farmer's Prayer is a 5x7 quilt that features the prayer. We want to give it to a deserving farm family, and I'm asking for nominations to be sent. You can find that button on our website that says National Ag Week, and you can go ahead and put in your nomination for your favorite farmer or farm family. We're going to award that quilt on Friday during this show, Weather and Ag in Focus, and you'll be able to watch us do that by using our live streams, which are on Facebook, YouTube, or Acres TV under Weather and Ag in Focus. And when you give us a nomination, we will also make sure to say a special thank you to our sponsors for our quilt, and that would include Fullerton Elevator, Thieving Oil and Propane, Triple E, and Sendak Cooperative. Thanks to those folks. Really appreciate that.
Good deal. Good deal. That's a nice quilt, too. That is a real nice quilt. And we're announcing the winner on Friday, you said, right, Bridgette?
Correct.
Okay.
We will be announcing that on Friday. So thanks for the nominations I received. I look forward to more of them. One of the things that most farmers probably aren't looking forward to right now is the fact that we've got some delays going on governmentally. Now, I realize DOGE is very busy, and for good reason, right? We want to improve our efficiency, cut waste. If you've ever worked in a corporation, you would be familiar with a term called the black belt, or using Six Sigma and being a black belt, a green belt at those levels of efficiency and productivity. I remember those in my corporate days as well. Now, what's happening though with some of the cuts that have been made is over at the EPA, it always took a while to get a herbicide registration completed. Once you submitted your registration package, herbicide, fungicide, insecticide, it could probably be an 18 to 20 month time frame until new products were approved and could be available for sale in the market. Once you had federal approval, you then have to go get your state approval. Well, it's taking a little bit longer now because we just had cuts of roughly, was it 65% of the workforce at EPA? So that could slow us down for a number of reasons there, just a little less manpower. But maybe things will get better in the near term, meaning that if we have folks that are more specialized and focus on their jobs, we could see that happening. So we're going to look what compliance could be like going forward with products that get registered at EPA. That's always a downside, is when you have too much government overreach, but kind of like any business, you want to make some cutbacks, and sometimes you cut pretty thin. and then you realize where you need people. So we're going to see where we start to get more folks back into the position at EPA and places like that to do their jobs and continue to keep products moving, especially new registrations for new herbicides, et cetera, that we want to see coming ahead into the marketplace for 2025 and especially 2026, because it's not just a short-term fix, it's what we got to do the next couple of years.
Good point.
So I said short-term fix, but we're also going to talk about a short course today, and nobody rode the short bus to get there. Our guest today is going to be joining us from South Dakota State University, and I know she probably already laughed at my jokes, but thanks for doing that, Madison. And our guest is Madison I got to make sure I say this slowly. Korvarna. I think I said her last name right. And I feel terrible because Madison's a returning guest, and I've met her in person a couple times, but I have to keep practicing her name because it's just a little unfamiliar to me. But Madison is a beef specialist with South Dakota State University. We're going to talk about beef and dairy genetics. And as a former dairy farmer's daughter, I found it unusual when I started to hear about a crossbreeding with those genetics from animal to animal, and why. Why are we wanting to do that? Well, that's the focus of a short course that's being handled at a dairy conference happening in Sioux Falls coming up next week. Madison's going to help answer a lot of those questions, and she's already been here once before talking about her ag in the classroom work, particularly the ag games and curriculum that she and her co-partner put together for students, and we want to see how that's been going since they brought it to us last summer. So we'll talk with Madison soon. Welcome back to Weather Ag in Focus. So glad that you're here today. And again, welcome to National Ag Week. Specifically today, National Egg Day. And if you haven't sent in your nomination for a Farmer's Prayer quilt, please do so. Once again, you can find that on our website. Click the nomination button at National Egg Day and Egg Week, and I will go ahead and collect those to be deciding our winner on Friday. Our guest today, she's a winner too. Her name is Madison. Okay, Madison, help me out. I know I butchered it earlier. Please say your last name for me.
Yeah. So my last name is Korvarna, a Northwest Iowa small little family bundle. So definitely not uncommon for it to be a miss there. So it's definitely a newer one up this far north. So don't blame you.
Okay, uh, but here's the thing. Growing up in the south central part of the state, I can barely speak regular English. Coming out of McIntosh County, there's a lot of accent there from that German background I grew up with. So you can see why I struggle with names from out of the area.
That was about like when I first came up to South Dakota. I've been in extension for just about 2 years now. So learning all of the South Dakota language and all the family names has definitely kind of put me in the same pickle. So no shame there.
Well, I would venture, I guess, that just to recap, we've had you as a guest before, and learning those South Dakota names and regions has come in quite handy as you've been working on this project that we talked about previously, and that was bringing agriculture into classrooms for students. And we even got to play the game with you where we got to look at different animal breeds and so forth. And I hear you've been out to bull sales, taking pictures and more educational video for people. So just give us a little update. How's the program going? What's happening in your curriculum right now?
Yeah, so we've gotten some kind of preliminary data back from it. We were in I believe 714-ish schools with about 230 youth that we were impacting this fall of 24. So now we're hoping to kind of grow that, increase the overall reach, and now our kind of focus with it now is updating the videos so we can have multiple breeds be represented. So we're kind of getting our toes wet with visiting with some Charolais folks in the state, as well as some Hereford people, so kind of allowing the students another glimpse into our other breeds that are available in South Dakota and highlighting how each of those operations has its own thing. We've gotten a lot of requests through our online form for the curriculum and the lessons, which has been super exciting to see. And I'm so happy to see people actually implementing it, not only maybe in a classroom, but at home or in our after school programs too. So it's been a really positive so far, and we're just hoping to kind of keep on the upward trajectory of making it bigger and better yet.
So feedback's been positive. I look forward to seeing what the next rendition of it might be, because I have a feeling you're going to add quite a few cool things to it. So that
Madison,
sounds fantastic.
are you mainly in Midwest schools, or are you kind of expanding this nationwide now?
As of right now, primarily a lot of our teachers and educators and families that have it are kind of in this tri-state, North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota area as of right now. But we did have a chance to meet with some folks from down south, kind of the Oklahoma, Texas range, that they're looking to implement these type of programs. So we're hoping that we can kind of branch out with those other states and kind of expand it and allow students to see beef production in other states too, which I think is super important for our kiddos here,
Right.
so they understand that beef isn't just the same as it is here in South Dakota. So we're working on expanding it, kind of a slow little process, but it definitely can be applied no matter where you are. The lessons are pretty universal across beef production, so
Okay.
that's kind of a positive for it.
Cool.
Love the things that you're doing with kids and education, Madison. I look forward to watching that progress happen. And that's just part of the things that you do in extension for South Dakota State. Also, you have quite a bit going on for adults. And you mentioned that registration is full on the short course coming up next week, but let's talk about it a little bit anyway. For those who didn't get registered, give them some FOMO. What are they going to miss?
Yeah, so while students and kiddos are definitely an audience that I've kind of been drifting towards lately, it's still fun to meet with producers and adults and people my age and older, maybe our more seasoned agriculture people, to educate them on different things that are happening. So one of the things that's kind of a multi-state effort between several universities, namely, Nebraska, South Dakota, Iowa, Minnesota, I believe North Dakota, we might be doing some stuff with them too. Not entirely sure, but it's through the I-29 Moo University. And one of the events that we host is a dairy beef short course. And it's held kind of in conjunction with the Central Plains Dairy Expo down in Sioux Falls. That'll be happening the 25th through the 27th. And the short course typically happens that Tuesday, that first Tuesday. We have everybody kind of come in the morning, get done by early afternoon. And the point of the short course is essentially to advocate for these dairy beef crosses that have kind of taken over the beef industry and the dairy industry by storm, realistically. And getting people to understand the beasts that they are and how we maybe have to change the management strategies. So it's not only for our dairy people to visit, but also for our feedlot operators and those type of people that raise fed cattle to understand kind of the difference of how a dairy beef animal finishes and just some different considerations there. So it's kind of an event of several speakers. We bring in speakers from all over the place with the different experiences, academic, private industry, those type of things, research, but also just, anecdotal stories. So things that they know. So we really try to make it as engaging and interactive as we can. We do have all of our registrations full for this year. We are accepting some waitlist stuff. So if you find the I-29 Moo University website, there's some contact information there for you to maybe join us this year. But if anything, we'd love to see you down at the Central Plains Dairy Expo. We'll have a little vendor booth that you can stop and say hi. I'll be there on Wednesday for sure. So we'll be hanging around at there.
Well, first of all, if you said it's called Moo University, this sounds like a good time to begin with. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to go. I just like that part of it.
Right? It's fun. We call it sometimes in our small groups will be, it's Moo U. Let's go to Moo U, and it's a fun little jig for us.
Yeah. Okay, so you use some terms that I know we have listeners today that don't know what they mean. So I want to start, before we even start talking about beef on dairy, I want to clear up some terms. So you said fed cattle and feedlot. Now, you and I, these are things that we talk about on a very regular basis, but not everybody listening does that. So give me your definition, if you would. Fed cattle, how that pertains to feedlot, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. So a fed cattle industry realistically is the animals after weaning. So, they're 600, 700, 800 pounds. They've left the traditional cow calf sector where they were with mom, they were grazing, those type of things. Now we're bringing them to potentially a more of a dry lot situation or a pen where they're just kind of in a fenced in area. They're not grazing. We're going to be providing a majority of that nutrition to them through usually basically a diet that we make specifically for them. So that's kind of where fed cattle for me is just where we're raising up young animals to go into the beef markets and produce beef for us. And then a feedlot is realistically any operation where we're feeding those animals at. So where we're going to see the animals that come in the younger in age, and then we usually have them in there till they're about 18 to 24 months old realistically. And maybe a little younger now, our beef animals are growing a lot faster due to really good genetics and selection there. But that feedlot is where we're actually putting on the weight to produce high quality beef and high quality protein for consumers.
Okay, that gives us a great place setting to start the rest of our conversation because, as I said preemptively earlier, growing up with dairy, I never thought about that crossbreeding of dairy and beef genetics, et cetera, and why that would matter. But that's a big focus for a lot of our beef producers today. And we want to talk a little bit more about that when we return. Madison's going to stay with us. She's calling in from South Dakota State University. She's a beef extension specialist. And we not only wanted to visit about Moo University happening next week, but now let's talk about why some of these short courses and other meetings need to happen to educate our producers. And we will do that after bottom of the hour news. We'll be back. Thanks for sticking with us and joining our afternoon. Glad that you are here helping us celebrate National Ag Week. Frankly, it's National Ag Week here every day. I have no problem having a great celebration of where my food comes from, your food, the clothes that we wear, and the things that we have in our lives. And so much is attributed to agriculture, especially when you look at just the amount of folks we have through our through industry that also help as processors, not just those raising the animals. Okay, our guest today that's joining us, Madison, is coming in from South Dakota State University Extension, Korvarna. I'm sorry, Madison. One of these days I'm going to get it right. Aren't you getting married, so I get a new name to call you pretty soon too? By the way, wouldn't that be helpful?
Yeah, I am. And it'll be pretty easy for you. It'll be cop, just like the occupation. So it'll be a little easier.
This is this is how you can make fun of your North Dakota friend and her inability to say things like out of state names. Okay, so all right, Madison, let's talk about beef on dairy genetics. And I was very surprised when I started hearing about this a couple years ago. Give us some background. What's going on there?
So with this beef on dairy popularity gain that we've seen in the last several years, it really came from the fact that dairies had a product of these male dairy calves that didn't really have a purpose. They weren't going to necessarily go back and become breeding stock. A lot of them were, I mean, these cows have to have calves in order to produce milk every year, right? And so these male calves, unfortunately, the market for them wasn't kind of worth it necessarily. They didn't have a lot of value to them, mostly because they don't marble as well most of the time. They take a lot longer to get to the same end point, same finish point. They're less heavy muscled compared to our beef breeds. I mean, beef breeds do beef well and dairy breeds do dairy well. That's why they've kind of separated too. And so someone decided, hey, with these cows that aren't in the dairy industry, that aren't going to be producing my replacement heifers that will come back and become my milking herd, what can I do to make their calves more valuable to my operation, but then also for the cattle feeders out there who wanted an animal who's going to market well and make high quality beef for us. So that's kind of where these dairy beef crosses came into play, of bringing in beef bulls, typically through AI process or artificial insemination, onto these dairies to make these calves higher value. Both for that dairy producer of getting that cow to go through another cycle of milking, but also having a calf that is worth more when they go to kind of sell that end product. So that's kind of where the dairy beef has gotten it got its start, and now it's just really kind of taken off, and people have seen the popularity of it. Feedlot operators are starting to see that they can get a really uniform set of calves that they are hard to find with our beef herds too. So that's kind of where it's gotten its drivers, and the popularity of it is just it'll keep going up. There's some tentative numbers out there from between about 2017 to 2021 that about 6 million doses of semen from the dairy industry was not sold, so they decreased their supply by 6 million while the beef increased by 6 million. So we can't say that all of that went into the dairy industry, but there's some indicators that say that popularity was driven by these crosses that can be made.
Hey, Madison, what about taste? Is there any difference in taste?
In the actual lean itself, so the actual meat there, not necessarily. You won't really be able to pick out the difference, but where you can start to see the difference is if you were to eat beef from a Holstein, 100% Holstein animal, there's just not going to be the same amount of fat content as there is in these crosses. So the overall kind of palatability, the juiciness, that kind of the flavor you get from the fat. I mean, in the meat industry, we say fat is flavor, and there's just more of it in these beef animals. So that's kind of where you really see the difference, is just that fat content and the flavor and the juiciness that comes from that.
Are you finding specific breeds that are being used more often than others?
This is something that kind of gets teased around that, I mean, the beef industry, we've been trying to argue which breed is best for at least 50 years plus. I mean, no one can agree kind of which breed is the best, right? And we can't decide, is it Angus, is it Herefords, is it Limousines, any of that. And it kind of goes the same in this dairy beef realm as well. The biggest thing we look at when you're trying to decide what sires to pick for dairy beef is we really need to look at the cows you have. For example, if you're a herd that mostly milks Jerseys, you're going for your butterfat content, they need a different
Hmm.
beef bull than what a Holstein cow might need. In a Holstein cow, we're really worried about those calves getting too large. Our packing plants, they're kind of adjusting to it of having larger carcasses come through, but we want to have a more, moderate sized bull for them versus our Jersey cows that are small and petite need that boosted performance. So it's really not, the silver bullet of a bull. It's just kind of finding the one that has the good calving ease numbers, is going to add that muscling and ribeye, and then also some of that marbling numbers too. So there's not one breed that does it. It really just kind of depends on what you're willing, and a lot of the beef breeds are kind of looking into how they can say which bull is going to maybe do better for certain, the dairy cross industry as well.
Madison, I've heard you say things like the ribeye, the uniformity of size on the calves, etc. But why would that matter? Why would that uniformity matter? I mean, I've got my reasons when I think about it for processing, but as you think about the industry overall, why are folks focusing on those things?
So uniformity in terms of not only helping the feedlot kind of be able to go into a pen of calves and know that they're not going to have the really high performers and the really low performers in that pen. It helps them kind of with their management immensely. But if we take out the actual production of these animals and look at it more from the consumer lens of consumers love consistent products. When you go to the store, you love to know that that steak, that ground beef, that roast is going to be the same whether you bought it this week from Hy-Vee or you went, a month ago and froze it, that quality is going to kind of be
Yeah.
the same, which is where that uniformity comes in. Is it's helpful for us on the production end, but realistically it benefits the consumer of knowing the quality of that product is going to remain consistent across the board. You might have some ebbs and flows, but for the most part, you're going to go and you're going to have a high quality protein source that tastes good, is juicy, is tender, all of those type of things. So realistically, that uniformity comes back to benefiting the consumers, and they kind of have a good expectation of the product that they're spending their hard-earned dollars to purchase.
And Madison just got an email in from one of our listeners arguing that corn-fed beef is much, much better. Is there a difference between corn-fed and anything else, like grass, or, I mean, can you really tell the difference?
With the difference in diet, namely between grain-finished beef or grain-fed beef or beef that are fed a high-grain diet as we get them ready for market versus the ones that are finished a little slower on a grass-based diet, whether that's grazing or it's, harvested grass and bales or whatever that looks like, there is some big taste differences between them. A lot of the times, too, there's some fat differences there, too. If you've ever seen grass-finished beef, a lot of the times the fat, if it's fresh grass they're eating, will have a yellow tint to it. It'll look more yellow than that traditional white, pearly white fat that we're seeing from our grain-finished animals. And it's just because of the beta carotene in their diet. And sometimes that can make the meat have a little bit of a different taste to it. And if you're not used to it, people kind of pick it up super easily. I grew up on grain finished beef and I can kind of taste the difference. But again, it's kind of with that, if you want a leaner product and you don't necessarily want, the high marbled products that we get when we do go more grain finished, that's kind of where this grass-fed beef market has found its niche of people and consumers. And there's always been the head-butting sides for both equation, but there is a little bit of a difference, but it really comes down to personal preference and how sensitive you are to those type of things as well.
Bridgette, what's your favorite?
Oh, I grew up with grain finish like Madison did.
Okay.
That's That's where I'm going to be at.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
where I still get my beef today. So as I think about
There's
when you mentioned go ahead, Madison, you finish your thought.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there's kind of the both sides of the coin. It's a double-edged sword when we talk about grain versus grass finished. And I think the biggest thing to kind of advocate for is if you do grass finished right and you do it the way that it benefits not only the animals, but just our production in general, you're going to have a high quality product. I had went and visited a producer and they had grass finished steaks for lunch. And you, off the grill, wouldn't have been able to tell a difference. And even the taste of them was not much different. I was surprised. It was one of the first times that had happened, but the way that they raise those animals on that grass is just a little bit different. So it's important to remember that there's both sides of the coin. You can do it right, you can do it wrong, but realistically, those grass finished beef, they have a place for our producers and consumers that want that leaner product that is just maybe raised more in the traditional way of out in the prairies or out in the grasslands and that type of thing.
So, Madison, when you were talking about uniformity that the consumer likes to see once we get to the grocery store in the beef that we buy, one of the things that I thought about was probably also uniformity when it goes into the packers, because we do want animals to be of a certain size, and because it makes it easier for processing. Because processing is fairly labor intensive. And that probably feeds into the same thing as you were thinking about when we talked about uniformity. Would that be correct?
Yeah, so our packers, I mean, they're running hundreds of staff, employees, and they're running in record speed. I mean, they have a lot of product to produce to feed our hungry nation and making sure that product is of high quality. And for them having cattle that come through that are relatively the same size, relatively the same finish, that makes their line go a lot faster. And for them, that's kind of a money saving thing. You think of it as almost an assembly line. The moment we try to assemble 7 different products on the same assembly line, one after the other, and then kind of start that over, we end up starting that process over every single time. So for our packers, it's kind of the same realm of, if you think of it that way, of the more uniform, the less they have to change their machines. Their workers aren't, changing what they're doing for a carcass that's, it's not uncommon to see carcasses over 1,100 pounds now with just how heavy we're finishing beef animals. I've seen beef animals go into a plant weighing like 2,000 pounds, 1,900 pounds to 2,000 pounds. Like that's not uncommon for us now. And if we have that same animal walking in the plant right after a normal, more moderate framed steer at 1,400 pounds, that kind of, messes up their line a little bit. So for them, a uniform product, it's easier for them to process, but also kind of on the output end, kind of lets them have a more streamlined service there for them.
Well, Madison, we covered the gamut of topics today, everything from starting out with Moo U to processing beef. And again, for folks who are maybe on the waiting list or looking forward to next year's dairy beef short course that'll be happening during Moo U, that always is an annual event at the end of March in the Sioux Falls area. And so you have some courses during that day, such as update on implants, vaccination management, preparing those calves for feedlot, research on the crossbreeds in the feedlot, and also the economics, as well as even talking about lameness in the feedlot. So there's some pretty great topics here. I hope that you get a long waiting list to get in and planning ahead for next year.
Yeah, I'm excited to see everybody come and join us, and it should be a pretty fun day of learning and just kind of getting everybody in the room that goes into this multifaceted industry of this beef on dairy and how beef producers can work with dairy producers and vice versa. I think we'll have some really cool conversations, and even if you can't make it to the short course, we'd love to see you stop by at the Central Plains Dairy Expo at our booth and kind of just sit and chat of maybe some things that either, if you come from this, the things that we brought up here, or just if you had any other questions.
Well, I'm looking forward to running into you at the next opportunity. Usually we seem to cross paths somewhere throughout the year. So thanks for your time today, Madison.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was excited to come back, and hopefully it won't be too long before you guys see me again.
Thanks, Madison.
That's exactly right.
Well, when we come back, we'll recap the weather. There is a little bit of light snow on radar to the south of the FM area. Is there any more snow in the forecast? And what about precip? We need it. I'll detail that. And Bridgette's got a few ag topics to cover as well. All that after the break. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus, 1:54 in the afternoon, and a little bit of light snow on radar to the south of the FM area, stretching from Ellendale, Oaks area, all the way east-northeastward into Otter Tail County. It's light. It's not affecting roadway conditions at all. So, but, again, just to remind you that, well, it's still March, and, yeah, there's still there's still snow around the area. Now, we're not expecting any accumulation really to speak of. Might see a trace, minor accumulation in some grassy areas with some of the heavier bands, like right now around the Oaks area. But other than that, we're looking at quiet weather for the rest of today with highs around 40 or so. And then tonight, mainly cloudy, 26. Winds pick up out of the north, and a windy day tomorrow. A big storm system will be traversing to our south. If you have any plans going south on 29, once you get past Sioux Falls, and not far past Sioux Falls, you're going to run into near blizzard conditions, and then that will stretch all the way up just south of the Twin Cities. But we'll see sunshine, windy, upper 30s, and then Thursday, pick day of the next probably week to 10 days at least, with highs in the low 50s, plenty of sunshine, and then we cool back down as we head into the weekend with upper 30s to right around 40 Friday, Saturday, Sunday. A few rain or snow showers Friday, and a better chance of a rain-snow mix as we head Saturday night into Sunday. So not a bad-looking forecast. I mean, we could be looking at big snows this time of the year. We're not. I would just like to see a little more precip come into the area. We just put out the updated April LRC calendar on our website, WDAYradionow.com. You want to log on to that. Kind of highlights when the bigger storms will occur during the month of April, when we're expecting those. So we're not out of the woods yet, but hopefully the majority of that precip in April is going to be rain. I do think one of those systems is going to be a snowmaker for us. Definitely a snowmaker in the central and western part of the state, it looks like. But we'll see how that pans out. We've still got a month ahead to worry about that.
We've got some time, and while you're thinking about getting into the field, planning ahead for your spring, don't forget about your technology. And it's really supposed to help our farms and ranches, but if you have any technology questions about how to make your operation run better and more smoothly, don't forget to contact Chris Sherman at techsupportfarm.com. Chris does a fantastic job of helping you prevent problems, whether it's with ransomwares, malwares, and then also setting things up so that you have those helpful password keepers and so much more. I know that sounds like a simple thing. We should all be able to do that ourselves, and yet we don't. And then we are at risk and vulnerable. And especially right now, there is a huge target on agriculture and ag processors for scams and so much more. So don't forget to reach out to Chris at Tech Support Farm. He would easily be your best source of information to help you out. Speaking of good sources of information, let's remember that tar spot was indeed located in 3 counties in North Dakota last year. We anticipate we will see more. Tar spot is one of those diseases in corn where the small spores will ride in on southerly winds. That's how we got it. It first appeared in the U.S. in 2015. Minnesota saw their first cases in 2019. It is a yield-robbing late season problem in our cornfield. What are some of the things that we might be able to do to prevent tar spot from causing a loss of yield in your field? Right now, there's work being done to look at fungicide applications applied around VT, which is your tasseling, or R1, silking, all the way up to R3, which is the blister stage of the kernels on the cob. It's been shown to decrease the incidence of disease when the disease is already present in the field. If you're going to be doing that, we're going to be doing it later in season where we've got fairly tall corn. You have to think about pretty big heights on your sprayers, or if you're going to be doing this by air and other methods. But keep an eye out. NDSU wants to see if we confirm tar spot in additional counties in North Dakota in 2025.
All right. Well, thank you, Bridgette. And for Bridgette and myself, we want to thank you for joining us today on Weather and Ag in Focus. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow for another edition starting at 1 o'clock. But don't go anywhere. The Jay Thomas Show, that's coming up next.